one of the messages, what we're doing today, there's two of them I want to tell you about. One of the main messages is that these families back east were always on the frontier, and they were essentially always moving west. Even before the Revolutionary War, during the Revolutionary War, and after the war, if you trace their history, you can see them moving steadily west. And I'll show you a map later on inside that was made in 1884. It was the first map made in the United States that was copyrighted, and it was by an American. The French had already made a similar one, but this one's by an American. And it shows for the New England states a whole bunch of Illinois and Michigan and all that stuff. They were, in that map, they were already headed west. That's the mentality of the Americans, and that's something that Lynn can speak to, because it's very important that we appreciate that the Americans were always pretty much oriented that way, but the British were not. So part of the war really was over territory really early on, not just New England per se, but we're talking about way out there to the west. So that's a kind of a main message that I came away with studying this stuff. And the other main message is that we have significant connections, families here to their ancestors there and the war. That's the other thing. They're significant. You'll find out. Okay, now Dan's going to talk a little bit about the cemetery itself.
Yeah, it's right where we're standing here is actually the intersection of kind of an important intersection of this. If you look down here, you'll see a post, and a straight line down that way, you see a post. This section here, bordered by the road down there, is the original Ebey graveyard. So this was the very first part of the cemetery right here in 1865. This got started, and then this Sunnyside from here over to the hedge over there is the Sunnyside edition. That was what, 10 years later, maybe? Not long after that.
Yeah, not long. Dr. Kellogg.
Yeah, Dr. Kellogg bought that, and that ended up being the Sunnyside edition. And once this was established as the cemetery in central Whidbey, it started filling up pretty fast. So they kept going with additions. And then this is the
Valley View.
Valley View is from here over that way. And this was several additions over time, and it extended that way. But once again, this was the very start of this cemetery in 1865. So what we're going to do, since we're starting here, they actually call it the Ebey graveyard. And for that reason, it was the Ebey family who was the first one buried up here. So we're going to walk around the front of this plot. This is one of the Ebey plots. And we'll start here. So I'm sure that if you're from Whidbey Island, everybody knows the Ebeys. They're some of the first pioneers here. And so everyone knows all about the Ebeys, but we're going to start with them. And they're an interesting family. There's a lot written about them, so they're kind of fun to read about. But we're going to start with the Ebeys that were here on Whidbey Island, and then after that we'll go to the Revolutionary War veterans that were involved in the war. So starting here, we all know Isaac Ebey was the first white settler to come here in 1850. And if you're ever down on that beach down there and you look up and you see that ravine that goes up the hill and you see the ferry house sitting at the top, well, that's Isaac Ebey walked up that ravine, probably on an old, probably a Native American trail, went up that. It's about the only way to get up to that prairie from the beach. So he walked up there to the top of that ravine and stood out and looked out and saw the water and the mountains and decided this is where he wanted to build his cabin and bring his family, and his future was going to be right down here. So he comes in 1850. A year later, his wife Rebecca and his two sons, Ellison and Eason, they come out on the Oregon Trail to join him. And in that time, I'm hoping he had his cabin built for them when they got here, but there was nothing here besides the Native Americans. There was no structures. So they come out to live with him at the cabins in 1851. Following that, a couple years later, the rest of his family comes out. His mother and father, Jacob and Sarah Ebey, they come out. And if you know the Jacob and Sarah Ebey house out here, it's a wonderful house to check out if you have time. They come out along with Isaac's brother, Winfield, and he has two sisters that come out on the Oregon Trail, Elizabeth Ruth and Mary Bozarth. So basically, it's about 3 generations of Ebeys all come west on the Oregon Trail to join him out here. So he must have been a pretty good influence to get them to, what a journey to come out here and join him. So unfortunately, the Ebeys have what I think is kind of a rough start. I mean, all pioneers, it was a hard life. It was hard to, it was rare to live a real long life back in that time, but I think the Ebeys had a little more than their fair share of tragedy in their family. So we'll just buzz through that really quick. Rebecca, she comes out. She actually has consumption. She's been ill for a while, but she gives birth to a daughter, and they name her Hetty. And not long after that birth, Rebecca dies. And she dies right down here at the cabins, and that's where they bury her. They bury her right up along that ravine there, right next to their home. I mean, that was typical at that time. You bury your family in your home, next to your home. So she passes away. And then 1857, we all know Isaac was killed. So he's buried right next to her, down there on the ravine. A few years after that, we have, 1859, Isaac's mother dies. Sarah, she's living up here in the Jacob Ebey house. She passes away. She's buried down there, and now that's becoming the Ebey graveyard. That's where everyone's going. Hetty, their daughter, 7-year-old daughter, dies of consumption. So sad. But she's buried down there. A couple years later, Jacob dies. And in the same year Jacob dies, Isaac's sister, Elizabeth Ruth, she's out here at the head of Penn Cove picking berries along Blower's Bluff. And she falls and has a fall down the bluff. Some Native Americans find her down on the beach. They help carry her up. But she ends up dying a couple months later from her injuries. And so now 6 of the Ebeys are buried down here within a short amount of time. Just a rough time for the Ebeys. So we have what we have left. We have Winfield and Mary Bozarth, brother and sister. Well, Winfield is very ill now too. He's been fighting this for a while, but the last minute he decided to go to California, hoping to find a cure, or maybe the climate, or whatever reason. He's hoping it's a last ditch effort for him to try to get his health back. He goes to California. The next thing you know, Mary gets a letter in the mail, post office mail, that states she needs to go claim Winfield's body. He's over here in Port Townsend. They shipped him up in a zinc-lined coffin, and he had passed away down in California while I was there. So Mary is pretty distraught, as you can imagine. Her whole family, she's coming over here with this, planning this big future in this beautiful area, and now her entire family is all passed away in a short amount of time. And so at that time, she decides she's not going to bury him down there in the Ebey graveyard. She's making a change, and she lives over. She has inherited the Jacob Ebey house at this time. She walks over here, and she stands right in the spot that we're standing, and she decides to bury Winfield right here. Her brother's going to be up on the hill with her. So that's right here is his headstone, and we're standing in the exact place that she stood when she chose the spot. And when at the funeral, I'm sure there was all the townspeople were up here. The Crockett's and the Alexanders and the Coops all came, and we're standing right where we're standing today. Although this was probably pretty much all a grassy hill, no trees at that time. And it was just what Mary decided she wanted to do. And the idea was that she was going to move her rest of her family up here at a later time. And so that's how this whole thing got started, in this little corner of the hill here.
And then back east?
Yes, and then
there's another big piece to this.
he was really stressed in the back east thing, and I love the back east thing, but I love the Ebey story. I love thinking about it, so I wanted to start with that. So now.